unlike sorceries, which derive power from knowledge. Incantations are drawn from beliefs and spirituality. Together, they tell the story of a world divided by competing faiths and the meddling of outer gods in mortal affairs. In today's video, we'll examine each category of incantations and study their lore in detail. Let's dive in. The formation of the Golden Order wasn't a clean break from what came before. In many ways, it assimilated older beliefs, most notably those tied to the Crucible, the primordial form of the Erdtree. Aspects of the Crucible are remnants of that ancient era. They manifest as physical transformations, such as horns, tails, and other bestial features, drawn from a time when all life blended together. Back then, the Land of Shadow was still connected to the lands between, as suggested by the Bloom incantation, which mimics the ability of Miranda flowers. As the Crucible gave rise to the Erdtree, the focus of these spells shifted as well. They began to embody the Erdtree's blessings during a time of bountiful grace and prosperity, which marked the early years of Marika's reign. That era is known as the Age of Plenty, described as a fleeting moment in history. Over time, Marika's reign would become defined not only by blessings, but also by wars and concealment. Land of Shadow alludes to the Shadow Tree's nature as a dark reflection of the Erdtree. Its gold is accompanied by shadow, intertwined in a permanent state of duality. Wrath from afar mirrors the golden shockwave triggered by the shattering of the Elden Ring, which was perceived with fear in the Shadow Realm. An understandable reaction, considering none there knew of what was going on in the lands between. Minor Erdtree provides a rare glimpse into Marika's past. Before leaving the Land of Shadow, she made a final visit to the abandoned village of her home. There, she summoned a golden sapling, formed by the kindness of gold, without order. More than an expression of faith, it feels like a compassionate and personal act, which brings nuance to her character. As the Erdtree became the center of life in the lands between, an institutionalized religion emerged around it. Protection of the Erdtree reflects on this formative period. Its blessing provides damage negation against all sources of magic, a useful boon against the many rivals of the nascent order. At first, their fiercest opponents were the ancient dragons. During that conflict, the Erdtree's protective prayers were adapted to lightning, providing a tactical advantage for the capital's forces. Barrier of Gold is another variant of the same prayer, countering the glintstone spells of sorcerers during the Liurnian Wars. Golden Vow provides a substantial enhancement to damage and defense, Knights of the royal capital leaned on it as a source of courage during expeditions, knowing the might of the Erdtree was theirs to wield. Wrath of Gold is the Lands Between's counterpart to Wrath from Afar. Its range is shorter by comparison, alluding to the relative distance of both regions from the Erdtree. The War of the Ancient Dragons ended in victory for the Golden Order, in no small part thanks to Godwyn the Golden. Not only did he defeat the dragons in battle, he also earned their friendship, which gave rise to the dragon cult of the capital. At that point, some dragons, like Lanciacs, took humanoid forms to commune with Leyndell's knights and share their knowledge of lightning. According to Dragonbolt Blessing, only those loved by dragons can survive lightning infusions, suggesting a genuine bond of affection between dragons and humans. The most renowned knights were bestowed superior incantations, such as Knight's Lightning Spear. This lost art is exclusively found in the Shadow Realm, where the most loyal of Godwyn's men ended up. Amidst all the capital's knights, though, the one Lanciacs loved most was Vike, the tarnished warrior who nearly reached the Forge of the Giants. His mastery of lightning certainly gave him an edge on his journey, which might explain how he got that far. Another key member of the alliance between dragons and humans was Florisax, the High Priestess of Dragon Communion. Her incantation bolsters the defenses of nearby allies, which surely helped her to gain the trust of humans. Over time, faith in the Golden Order gradually gave way to doctrine. More than a religion, it became the embodiment of laws and culture, a subject of study that could be examined through reason. Rings of Light spells reveal the timeline of fundamentalism, tying its development to the latter years of the Golden Order. By that point, Godfrey had long since been exiled, and Radagon had become the second Elden Lord. He and his son, Miquella, gifted these spells to each other, suggesting a strong bond of affection. Fundamentalist doctrine is built upon two central laws: regression and causality. These ideas resonate with the game's narrative, where past and present are intrinsically linked. Order's Blade and Litany of Proper Death were designed to fight against those who live in death, the undead creatures reanimated by Deathroot. Here, fundamentalism reveals its uncompromising nature, a quest for perfection which left little room for tolerance. According to Order Healing, Goldmask lamented these fanatic tendencies, which may have sparked his quest to mend the Order. Above the priests and theologians of the Order stood a higher authority, the Two Fingers, the ancient interpreters of the greater will. At the Round Table Hold, they bestowed instructions to the Tarnished, as well as a set of incantations, devised to protect them on their journeys. The Fingers were well aware of the dangers that lied ahead, and offered a way to mitigate damage types used by Shardbearer factions, making it easier to gather great runes. The Fingers' authority wasn't maintained through faith alone, but also through coercion, quietly removing those who opposed their doctrine. Tarnished who had strayed from guidance became assassins, operating in the shadows to do the Fingers' dirty work. In Shadow of the Erdtree, we learn that Meteor and the Fingers were abandoned, their connection to the greater will severed long ago. According to Lord's divine fortification, Gideon Ofnir came to the same conclusion after a long exchange with the Fingers. That explains his behavior near the end of the game, when he confronts the Tarnished in the Ashen capital. While the two Fingers represent order, the three Fingers are a vessel of chaos. Howl of Shabriri is named after the first follower of the Frenzied Flame, the disembodied spirit of a man who continues to torment the lands between, long after his death. Every known attempt to wield the Frenzied Flame ended in madness. In that sense, Frenzied Burst is a meager victory over chaos, a fleeting moment of control rather than true mastery. The Frenzied Flame doesn't merely induce madness, it also amplifies pain and sorrow. Unendurable frenzy manifests this state as tears of fire, fueled by outbursts of unimaginable suffering. Much like Vike and others before him, Midra was deemed too weak to become a Lord of Frenzied Flame. This line suggests a recurring history of failed attempts to embody the destructive power of chaos, which requires a strong vessel to achieve its vision. Blood Oath incantations result from Mohg's communion with the Formless Mother. Upon contacting her, he learned to channel blood flame from his own Omen blood. Bloodboon and Bloodflame Talons became his signature abilities, making him a formidable opponent in combat. Swarm of Flies describes the festering environment of Mogwin Palace, where stagnant blood altered the local fauna. Furious Blade of Ansbach uses Bloodflame as a precise instrument of combat, unleashed only as a last resort. This technique gave rise to his fearsome reputation, implying it won him several fights in the past. In all likelihood, that was the spell he used against Miquella, only to have his heart stolen. Far from a mere affliction, Scarlet Rot embodies a cycle of decay and rebirth, manifested from the power of an outer god. Poison mist and poison armament reflect a connection between rot and poison, which stem from a similar process of decomposition. Those who dwell within poison know rot all too well, suggesting they're very similar in nature. Pest threads are associated with the kindred, the insectoid creatures born from Scarlet Rot. The Lands Between's pests were rejected by millennia, whereas those of the Land of Shadow thrive under Romina's influence, which is reflected by their stronger version of the same spell. Rotten Butterflies channels a powerful incarnation of Scarlet Rot, manifested through swarming butterflies. They symbolize the goddess of Rot, the living vessel of an outer god, which millennia was fated to become. While her transformation was delayed, Romina reached out to them, providing a soothing presence in their solitude. Scarlet Aeonia frames this transformation as a gradual process, with each bloom bringing her closer to this incarnation. In that regard, it remains up for debate whether or not she reached her final form. Miquella's incantations manifest his desire to transcend the Golden Order and forge a new vision for the world. Multi-layered Rings of Light reflects this divergence, having been cultivated by his own spiritual tradition. Upon stepping beyond the gate of divinity, Miquella ascended to godhood, granting him immensely powerful abilities. His benevolent light became a pillar of destruction, mercilessly cast against the tarnished, the only one capable of challenging his vision. In the end, the future of the Lands Between hinges on the outcome of this fight, making our confrontation all the more meaningful. Giant's Flame incantations draw power from the Flame of Ruin, the ancient fire of the Fell god. The fire giants preserved the flame as guardians, until their deaths released them from this duty. They were succeeded by the fire monks, who guarded the flame on the Golden Order's behalf. Only fire inevitably beguiles those who gaze into it, and so the fire monks eventually came to worship the same fell god as the fire giants. According to fire's deadly sin, prophets of the Golden Order sometimes glimpsed the flame of ruin in their visions, no doubt envisioning the future burning of the Erdtree. Such visions led to banishment, as questioning the eternity of the Erdtree was considered heresy. Godslayer incantations harness the power of black flame, the ancient fire of the gloam-eyed queen and her followers. Black flame ritual describes her as Empyrean, chosen by the Fingers to lead the realm as goddess, possibly hinting that she was an alter ego of Marika. According to Black Flame's protection, she embraced each of her apostle followers, which granted them an enchantment of protection. Noble presence was once a sign of the god's wrath, referring to the unnamed deities hunted by the godskins. All that remains of them are the godskins' robes, and this incantation, which was kept as a trophy. When Malekith sealed the Rune of Death, the true power of the Black Flame was lost, which ended its god-slaying properties. Although a few godskins lingered in the lands between, they were left leaderless and were no longer a threat to the golden lineage. Revered by some and feared by others, the rite of dragon communion grants considerable power, obtained by consuming dragon hearts. Dragonclaw and Dragonmaw allow the caster to temporarily take on draconic traits, manifesting their giant claws and jaws. In addition to physical transformations, Dragon Communion also replicates elemental affinities and the specific abilities of dragons. Their descriptions provide a bit of backstory about each of them, which I previously covered in other videos. Those who consume dragon hearts eventually turn into magma worms, the land-bound draconic creatures described as former heroes. The ancient troll warrior, Theodorix, was among those who met such a fate, permanently transformed as a result of their hubris. The incantations derived from Baal's heart harness his dreadful might, combining the destructive forces of fire and lightning. Such power comes at a cost, however, for even in defeat, his throbbing heart resists subjugation, and will one day consume the Tarnished, should they draw from it. Bestial incantations are awarded by Gurranq, the beast clergyman, also known as Malekith. Long ago, beasts were granted intelligence, marking a shift from pure instinct to conscious understanding. Bestial Sling reflects their earliest response to this change, with stones becoming their first weapons. The bestial buffs describe a growing sense of awareness, as their primal nature gave way to sentience, marking the foundation of Beastmen civilization. Gurranq's spells establish Malekith as his original identity, a name that apparently translates to Death of the Demigods. A fitting title for Marika's loyal shadowbound beast, strong enough to defeat Empyreans and seal the Rune of Death. After the events of the Shattering, Malekith felt as though he failed in his duty, which explains why he took on the role of beast clergyman. Divine beast incantations are associated with animalistic deities, worshipped by the Hornsent. Divine bird feather is connected to the divine bird warriors, described as the first horned warriors. They bear resemblance to the Crucible, directly linking the Hornsent civilization to that ancient era. Divine Beast Tornado is associated with the Dancing Lions, the sculpted keepers of the Tower settlement. Its description refers to the brutal sacking of the city, perpetrated by Messmer and his troops, a scene depicted in the story trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree. Those who witnessed it likened it to a funeral pyre for the tower itself, a powerful image that symbolically marks the destruction of Hornsent civilization and the end of its sacred traditions. Watchful Spirit conjures wrathful souls of fallen Hornsent. It was conceived by the Hornsent Grandam, one of the few survivors of Messmer's crusade. The spirits channel the Hornsent's resentment and their desperate hope for vengeance. Messmer's incantations manifest his volatile flame. According to Fire Serpent, it possessed a will of its own and refused to take root within his loyal Fire Knights. Thus, they proved unable to wield this spell, and had to rely on their own fire instead. Rain of Fire was devised by Salza, a Fire Knight whose hatred of barbarism never waned. And yet, despite his convictions, he scorched more land than any other servant of Messmer, making this spell all the more tragic. Messmer's orb provides a rare glimpse into his past. He apparently loathed his own fire, likely due to its connection to the abyssal serpent, and attempted to get rid of it on several occasions. In a certain way, his character echoes Malenia's story, with the way they both resented their source of power. Spiral incantations originate from Enir-Ilim, the sacred tower of the Hornsent. The Inquisitor's golden arcs resemble barbs, a symbol of coercive questioning, reminiscent of the methods that contained Midra. Interestingly, though, they also share a visual resemblance with other spells and items, most notably those associated with the Elden Ring. Spira explains the nature of spiral imagery, describing it as a normalized crucible current, forming a column that stretches to the gods. In that sense, Enir-Ilim's architecture functions as a catalyst, channeling sacrifices upwards into the divine gate. The same ritual that powered the ascension of Marika and Miquella. The dragon matriarch, Greol, is one of the largest specimens of her kind. Due to her massive size, the sound of her roar was likely heard from great distances, frightening those who heard it. As such, her incantation demoralizes nearby enemies, alluding to her fearsome reputation. Flame of the Fell God was a well-kept secret of the Fire Monks, until it was stolen by Adden. It reveals that the Fell God still lurks within the Fire Giants, and never abandoned the Lands Between. A disturbing revelation for the Lands Between's denizens. Elden Stars is the most ancient incantation of the Erdtree, revealing the origins of the Elden Beast. Long ago, it crashed down on the Lands Between as a golden star, a celestial envoy that heralded a new era. Sometime later, it became the Elden Ring, a construct which shaped the laws of reality and forever altered history. If you enjoy my content, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.